Hello and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are doing the first of a pair of video reviews. They have in common that we are looking at Shibi tea from Taiwan. Shibi being a lesser known high mountain tea growing region of Taiwan, sandwiched between the better known Alishan and Shanlin Shi. This video is a little different apart from it being a pair of videos linked, in that it's going to be the first in a very occasional series. Already we've done at least 3 videos in a series that I call A Tale of Two Seasons. The point of that is to compare, let's say, a spring 25 and an autumn 25 harvest of tea. It doesn't matter which two harvests, but the point is they're in the same year. And the idea there is to be able to say in any given year, what changes does the changing of the seasons bring about? However, what we're doing today is we are looking at the same tea from the same region, and the same season, but different years. So this is going to be a series called What a Difference a Year Makes. And really, you might argue that if the tea is a year older, not old enough to affect the taste, it won't have started aging, but these teas might be more difficult to get hold of, for one thing. That's very true, but the point of this kind of mini-series, and it will be very intermittent, is simply to be able to say, yes, but what was the characteristic of winter 25 harvests versus, for example, winter 24. It could be a spring comparisons year on year. It doesn't matter. Once again, the point being is to say what was the kind of characteristic of that season in that year. And I feel it's something interesting to do when tea is such an ephemeral product. So what we have in front of us on my left is the winter 24 Shibi High Mountain Oolong, and on my right the winter 25. Now these are both sample packages. They're from Taiwan Tea Crafts. The one on the left is a 15 gram and the one on the right is a 20 gram sample package. They've both been opened because I recorded the looking at the packaging and the tea earlier. So what we have is a chance to try out these teas on 2 different seasons, 2 different years. And in our next video, we're going to swap out the winter 24, and we're going to compare this winter 25 to the spring 25. So in the next part of our video, we're going to record looking at the teas up close, looking at the leaves. And what we're going to do is look at all 3, and I'll repeat that bit of recording for both videos so that if anybody watches one or the other, they get a chance to see all 3 teas and see what differences there might be. So let's move on to that now. Let's look at the tea and then we will come on to review our tea. First of all, reviewing winter 24 versus winter 25, and then in the next video, spring 25 versus winter 25. So see you for part 2. So here we are about to take a look at the tea and incidentally the packaging on our 3 samples of Shibi High Mountain Oolong. So what we have in front of us is the packaging and the tea from winter 2024. If I just take that away. Looking at the beads, the colour is pretty uniform and darker green. There are some lighter patches as well. Some of the stalks are prominent, but most of them are dehydrated and tucked in more thoroughly. On average size, I would say the beads are about 3 to 4 millimeters. The smell, incidentally, from this winter 24 sample is incredibly fruity, but with a strong vegetable undernote as well. So let's turn round, and we're now coming to our April 25 harvest. The beads are, let me arrange these a little for you. The beads are still a uniform dark green colour. In fact, I would say the colour is more uniform. I'm not seeing much in the way of obvious stalk. I mean, the stalk is there, it's just not very prominent. I would say on average the beads are slightly smaller. I would say these are coming in at most at 3 millimeters. The smell of these leaves is somewhat different. The sweetness is there. There's still a lot of fruit, but that vegetal note, it's just not there. So now let's move on to, let me put that back in the middle for you. This is from winter 2025. First thing to note, I would say these beads are a little less uniform in size. We have some, like this one here, that must be at least 5 mils, but some of them are down to 3, some of them are probably even smaller. Colour-wise, still fairly uniform, although there are some more overtly and uniformly light green pieces like this one. The smell on the leaves is, it's sweeter and fruitier than the winter 24, I would say. Not as sweet and fruity as the spring 2025, and it has only a hint of that vegetal note. So now what we're going to do is move on to reviewing these teas. See you in a mo. Incidentally, as I did with the multi-part series on Pear Mountain, what I'm going to do is repeat this sequence for both videos so that you get a better chance to compare and contrast. So, on to brewing our tea. See you in a mo. Hello and welcome back to the first part of our brewing and reviewing of this tea. You might be able to guess from how we've got things set up here that this is our Western style brewing and testing. Both teas were brewed at 90 degrees centigrade with 250 mils of water, although one of them seems to be bigger than the other somehow, for 3 minutes using 3 grams of tea. The one thing that I noticed immediately is that the winter 24 harvest tea unfurled a lot more quickly, a lot more readily. The winter 25 tea had only just really begun to steep and unfurl within the last 40 seconds, I would say, which is one of the reasons why these teas are pretty evidently, even from here, a different colour. And I think it's important to say that in case there is some influence on the taste profile as well. Certainly I'd expect some change in the intensity. So looking at the winter 24 tea, that is a pale greeny gold colour, I would say. Try to move it. There you go. That's a slightly more natural light. Kind of a pale greeny gold. And the winter 25 is paler, definitely. I think there's more green than there is gold. So I'd be really interested to see what these smell like as well. Some of what came through on the dry leaf is here again. There's fruit and the sweetness, but yeah, there's a lot of butter, which is a characteristic of high mountain oolongs, a sort of a buttery note. And on this side, it's sweet and it's perfumey. A little bit of fruit, maybe a touch of butter, but by no means as intense. So let's see how that influences the taste. All 3 are there on the cup. I'm expecting this to be pretty intense. Yeah, the fruit's there, the butter is there, the sweetness is there. They're lingering. They could probably do with either more tea or a slightly longer steep, but they're all there, and they're working very nicely together. It's a lovely kind of stone fruit, I would say. It's not like a tropical fruit at the very least. So let's see what this tea is like. Also an excellent mouthfeel on the 24 harvest. Let's see what the 25 is like. Not really picking much of anything up on the cup other than the sweetness. Now, for all that that didn't steep for as long, there's still a good deal of flavour. It's perhaps a little less defined. Even for Western brewing, the fruit and the sweet and the butter were all sort of working together. This one, the Winter 25, they're more sort of melded together. This definitely, I think, would benefit from a hotter steeping, which I might do for the next video anyway. This is a good thing about being able to practice them. I'm going to try that again. Funnily enough, despite not unfurling, the flavour is lingering for a little longer than the Winter 24. I think it's just a little less. It's still pretty sweet. There's just a little less with the Winter 25. Very perfumey though. So let's just compare that once again to the Winter 24. Yeah, they're all sort of interplaying. So we are sort of forewarned there that the Winter 25 isn't going to behave physically in the same way as the Winter 24. And as we move on to a Gongfu session for the Winter 24 and then the Winter 25, it might well be worth upping the temperature for this one, but watching how long the steeps are. So we're now going to do a Gongfu session for the Winter 24. See you in a moment. Hello. Here we are with part, I suppose it's 3B of our video, where we have moved on from the Western brewing to compare and contrast the Winter 24 and Winter 25 harvests, Shibi, High Mountain, Oolong. And now we're going to move on to a Gongfu session. I don't really have the expertise or the equipment to be able to do the Gongfus side by side. So I'm going to be doing what I normally do and doing one then the other. And this one is the Winter 24. I should point out that I've bumped up the temperature of the water to 95 this time. I know that the Winter 24 steeped, unfurled, rehydrated very readily at 90, but the Winter 25 didn't. So to try and get the best out of both, the temperature's gone up to 95. Now I'm going to try and do what I usually do. I'll keep the amount of water consistent and the amount of tea leaf. It's 3 grams of tea. This pot comfortably takes 50 mils of water, and I have my stopwatch here to work out precisely how long the steepings are. We'll start at about 25 and see where that takes us, and then we'll see if 25 will also do when we come to the next tea. The point is, the amount of tea and the amount of water and the temperature will keep the same, but we may have to vary a little on the steeping times. So that's enough chattering. There is our 3 grams of tea, water at 95. Let's give this 50 mils of water for 25 seconds to start with. I suspect, given how readily it's steeped, that we might be quite a way towards that already. So as I say, we will give it till 25 and see where that takes us. A wee shugle. Sorry for the scraping. 25. And let's see where we are with that. The sweetness is there already and the fruit. The leaves, believe it or not, for 25 seconds, one of these little beads is about 3/4, they probably can't see, it's about 3/4 of the way and steeped already. That's pretty impressive, and the butter's there. Okay, wow. It's probably very easy to overdo this one. There we are. Greeny gold. Give you a bit more of the natural light, not the lamp I'm using. There you go. Sort of a greeny gold. Sweet and fruit and butter. Not too intense just yet, but it is only the first steeping. Let's see where this takes us. The sweet and the butter's on the cup. Funnily enough, it's more vegetal that's coming through than the pure butter, but there's a wee bit of sweet and a wee bit of fruit. Just a hint of butter, but the strongest thing there is a kind of vegetable note. So let's reset that, and we're going to play this very safe and check this again at 25, because once the leaves have unfurled, if you've done it carefully enough, you don't need to just up the temperature straight away, because they'll release their flavors, their molecules into the water more readily. Let's start with 25 again. And I can see them moving around, so they're definitely unfurling already. So, flavour's lingering a little bit. That's not bad for a first steeping. Well, that vegetable was pretty strong. I was surprised at that. So, coming up for 25. There we go. I know you might think that's exactly the same, but as I say, yeah, there's a lot of vegetable coming off there. There's a big risk of actually cooking that, I think, or at least letting out the tannins. Some of the stalk material has rehydrated. The leaves aren't fully there yet, so it's not too... We haven't overdone anything. The colour's definitely more intense. Oh yes, look at that. A much stronger greeny gold. And the perfume is hitting me from, well, arm's length. That's always a good sign. It's perfumey, it's sweet, it's fruit and it's butter. Maybe more butter than fruit, but still plenty of it. So let's see what this one is like. Sweetness and a bit of butter. It's the butter, lashings of butter. And it's sweet. Not too much fruit. I was expecting more. But yeah, it's perfumey, it's sweet and it's butter. I wonder if the fruit is part of the flavour profile that comes out a little bit later. So, looking at some of this material, the stalk, as I say, has rehydrated, but the leaves aren't fully there yet. Some of them are, the rest aren't. So we're going to play this very safe again, and we might even take this to 20 and then see where that gets us. So once again, 50, 95 degrees centigrade. Sorry, that's not quite. Right, there we go. As I say, we'll play it safe, try it at 20 even. Maybe 25. No, we're going to push it to 30. I'll be able to tell whether I'm being too timid by seeing how hydrated the leaves are, and they're much more hydrated. The butter and that kind of sweet perfumey note are there. Yeah, they're pretty much hydrated now, rehydrated. Colour is still intense. There you go. Greeny gold, more green. A little less of the vegetable, much sweeter. I'm kind of hoping there might be some of the fruit in there this time, but we'll see. Oh, well, that's very perfumey. Maybe this is the one. Still only a bit of fruit, but very perfumey. I'm wondering if that's what the fruity note is coming from, that kind of on the Western. I'm wondering if the perfume is really what's translating a sweetness with a Gongfu. Buttery and it's sweet. We're going to push that. I know that 25, 25, 30. We're going to try that one more time and see if we can't get something more out of that. I can't help feeling, right, we'll try for 25 again. At the very least. It's a strange idea trying to chase down a particular flavour, but I suppose that's the advantage of Gongfu. I don't going to push that any longer than 30, I don't think. 30. Sweet, perfumey once again, nothing vegetal. And that's looking unfurled, very thoroughly rehydrated. Again, a lovely intense colour. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gold green. A lot more butter again. And sweet, I'm not picking up anything else. Maybe a touch of fruit there, but I'm stretching it a bit to do that. It's very buttery. It's very perfumey and it's very sweet, very smooth, lovely mouthfeel. Funnily enough, I would say that the Western style seems to have done that a little more justice. So we're now going to try this again, same parameters, but with the Winter 25. So see you in a mo. Hello again and welcome to the final part of our video where we are going to do a Gongfu session for the Winter 25 harvest Shibi Oolong tea. So once again, we've tried to keep the parameters the same. The water's at 95 degrees centigrade, 50 mils at a time in the small gaiwan, 3 grams of tea, and then we'll try and keep the steepings the same. They came out at 25, 25, 13, 30 off the top of my head. So we'll try at the very least to take them to 25, and then we'll see what state the leaves are in. We might do the first one at 25 for the sake of being much the same, and then we'll play it by ear. So here we go. Let's give this 25. Some popping, that popping when there's bubbles of air trapped inside the leaves, trapped inside these beads as they're folded around each other. That's always a good sign. Let's see what this is like at 25. Not very unfurled, but perfume and some fruit, definitely. That's a good start. The leaves are smelling very perfumey, very sweet, almost biscuity, but as you can see, really not rehydrated at all. The flavours are somewhat diluted. The smell, I beg your pardon, is a little more diluted off the jug. But it's still sweet, a bit of vegetal, sweetened vegetal. A little buttery there. It's smooth and it's sweet. Maybe a hint of butter. Yes, making my mouth water. But nothing too intense, but the leaves really aren't unfurled. But I think it's a good sign that even so unfurled, there's some flavour. So we're definitely going to give those 25, maybe even 30. And then we will move on to, well, we won't. We'll conclude this review, but I'm going to do the Spring 25 and the Winter 25 comparison video right after this one. So plenty of tea for me. Okay, that's 25. Nope. Let's push that to 30 maybe. Still doing their very best not to unfurl. Right, we're going to give that 40. That seems like a lot. But these leaves are making a valiant effort at not rehydrating. A little bit of sweetness on the lid. We're starting to see some re-steeped stalk there, but that's about it. Let's see what that's got us. I'm going to guess, what's the colour like? Kind of white tea colour, that kind of silvery colour, maybe a hint of green. I was going to guess there'd be a strong vegetal note, but there isn't. It's butter and sweetness. Let's see what that's like. Sweet, buttery, a little biscuity. Well, that's much more full-bodied. Flavour is not as intense as it could be. I can't really describe it as anything other than I can still taste the water. I know that sounds odd, but it's dropping off ever so slightly, but lots of sweetness in there and some fruit, definitely some fruit, and a wee bit of butter. So we're getting there. That was a long steep, longer than I expected. And quite possibly this one will need to be some length as well. Let's see where it takes us. Let's go for 30 to start with. I suppose once it started to unfurl, it will start to become quicker, just because it's already made some room and some space on the leaf for the water to get to more surface area. That's what I'm trying to get at. All right, let's be careful. We'll just go with 30 to start with. No, let's take that to maybe 35. No, once again, let's go with 40. Let's play with fire. Okay. More of the vegetables come out, which isn't really surprising, but plenty of sweetness. And the leaves, my goodness, they're about 90%, maybe 95% of the way there, but they're still a little wrinkly. You could probably get, actually, tell a lie. Those have at least flattened out more or less, but no, there's still some give in there. The colour, a little more yellow to go with the green, but it's still a sort of silver colour, but just more with green and yellow. Lots of butter. And lots of sweetness. Very perfumey. Very smooth, although they all seems to be working together. Let's try that. Very perfumey. Oh, that's really good. That's almost got a sort of incense quality to it. It's perfumey and it's sweet, and there's a little something else, a little bit of spice in there. Yeah, I think incense is a good word. Something almost kind of savoury tucked in there. So, let's review, or let's look back on this video where we've compared a Winter 24 harvest and a Winter 25. The same Oolong, Shibi Oolong, High Mountain. So it's the same region. It's the same cultivar, incidentally, it's Qingshin. On the Western, that's when we noticed the Winter 24 leaves were behaving very differently. They were unfurling very readily, whereas as we've seen with this Gongfu as well, the Winter 25 were stubborn and resolute in not re-steeping, hence the bumping up of temperature. The Winter 24, I think, worked better with the Western style. The flavours came out more, they were more carefully melded, and there was definitely some fruit, and along with the sweetness and the butter. Naturally, because the leaves weren't so unfurled, it was a bit thin for the Gongfu, for the Western, for the Winter 25. I would say for the Gongfu, with these, by necessity, much longer steeps, the Winter 25 has come out on top of that. I'm still getting incense and perfume in my palate now, which is always a good sign. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. This is really a way of saying, how do these leaves behave differently? What has that year, that harvest, done to the tea leaves? They've behaved very differently physically, and that's led to differences in the taste. So that might be something worth bearing in mind. For Gongfu, I would say with the longer steeps, Winter 2025 won. For the Western, I would say, because it was a lower temperature, the Winter 24 worked out. So this isn't really a review unless you've learned something interesting or intriguing about the Winter 25 Shibi, and you might want to pursue that further. That was some Taiwan tea crafts. I haven't found it many other places, but that's the joy of investigating. So I hope this has been of some interest. I've learned a lot. That's really why I do this series. And all I would like to say is happy steeping and God bless.